Ladies and gentlemen, friends, brothers and sisters, I stand before you with a simple truth that has changed lives and turned defeat into victory. You can only win when your mind is stronger than your emotions. We live in a world where emotions rise like floods. Fear sweeps over us, anger flares like wildfire, doubt clouds the sky of our understanding, and sadness can weigh down the strongest of hearts, but hear me, feelings were never meant to be your master. The battle for your life is not first fought in the boardroom, on the field, or in your home. The first and greatest battle is in your mind. It's in your thoughts, in what you choose to believe when the winds howl and the waves crash. The scripture tells us, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, not by your emotions, not by how you feel when you wake up in the morning, but by a mind that has been made new. The battle is won in the mind first. Before victory ever shows itself on the outside, it takes root on the inside. Before success becomes a reality in your life, it first becomes a decision in your mind. We often look at those who have overcome great obstacles and think they were lucky or they had special talents. But if you look deeper, you'll find that their greatest strength wasn't in their body, their wealth, or their circumstances. It was in their mind. It was in their ability to hold fast to belief when everything around them said otherwise. They chose to think differently. They chose to discipline their thoughts and guard their minds like a soldier standing at his post. And that choice, long before the victory showed up, made all the difference. Life throws battles at every one of us. Some people are fighting battles in their health, others in their finances, in their families, or within their own hearts. The enemy doesn't always come dressed in red with a pitchfork. Often the enemy shows up in the form of discouragement. It whispers in your ear, you can't do it, you're not good enough, you've failed too many times, give up. And if we aren't careful, we start to believe those lies. We let those thoughts take root, and soon our actions follow where our thoughts lead. That's why the battle must be won in the mind first. You cannot live a positive life with a negative mind. You cannot live a life of courage if your mind is filled with fear. You can't have peace on the outside when there's a war raging on the inside. Every great thing God calls you to do starts with a choice in your mind. The decision to believe, the decision to trust, the decision to keep going when you feel like giving up. These are the quiet victories of the mind that lead to the great victories of life. Before David ever defeated Goliath, he won the battle in his mind. He stood there, a young man facing a giant with nothing but a sling and 5 stones. But David had already made up his mind. He said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from this Philistine. His victory didn't start when he slung that stone. His victory started when he believed in his heart and settled it in his mind that God was greater than his enemy. That is where battles are won. Many people wait for their circumstances to change before they change their mindset. But that's backward. The truth is your mind has to change before your circumstances ever will. You have to decide who you are, what you believe, and where you are going, regardless of how you feel or what things look like around you. Some of you are waiting for the breakthrough, but God is waiting on you to change the way you think. As long as your thoughts are full of fear, full of doubt, full of self-pity, you're stuck in a losing battle. But when you renew your mind, when you begin to think thoughts of hope, faith, courage, and purpose, everything begins to shift. A disciplined mind leads to a disciplined life. The Bible tells us to take every thought captive. Why? Because your thoughts shape your destiny. Every action begins with a thought. Every word you speak comes from what you've allowed to dwell in your mind. If you let anger stay in your mind, it will come out in your words and your behavior. If you let bitterness take root in your mind, it will poison your relationships and your joy. But if you fill your mind with truth, if you remind yourself daily who God says you are, what He has called you to do, and the promises He has given you, you will stand strong in the face of every battle. It's not easy to discipline your mind. It's not automatic. You have to train your mind just like you would train your body. If you want a strong body, you have to exercise. If you want a strong mind, you have to exercise it daily. You have to choose your thoughts the way you choose your clothes. You have to say, I will not wear fear today. I will not wear doubt. I will clothe myself in faith. I will put on courage. I will wrap myself in hope. And when the enemy comes knocking on the door of your mind, you don't have to let him in. You have the power to choose. Some of you need to remind yourself that you are not a slave to your emotions. You are not a victim of your thoughts. You are more than a conqueror through Christ. And that means you can win the battle in your mind. You can choose peace over panic. You can choose strength over weakness. You can choose faith over fear. But it happens by making up your mind. Not once, not twice, but every single day. The battlefield of the mind is where your future is decided. Every day, you are either winning or losing by what you allow to stay in your thoughts. You can't control every thought that comes your way, but you can control what stays. Just like a bird may fly over your head, but you don't have to let it build a nest in your hair. Thoughts of fear, defeat, and failure may come, but you don't have to entertain them. You don't have to give them room. Instead, speak truth over yourself. Declare the promises of God. Stand firm in your faith. When your mind is disciplined, your life will follow. Your decisions will be clearer. Your actions will be intentional. Your heart will be at peace, and your victory, long before it's seen by anyone else, will already be won. Because the battle is won in the mind first. Emotions are temporary, but decisions are eternal. That truth is simple but powerful. Every person walking this earth knows what it feels like to be swayed by emotion. One moment you're on top of the world, and the next, you're in the valley of despair. You wake up feeling strong, but by noon, you're overwhelmed. Emotions can rise quickly like a flood and fall just as fast. They are ever-changing, influenced by circumstances, people, and the events around us. But decisions, real decisions made with clarity and conviction, have lasting power. They shape lives, determine destinies, and create legacies. Feelings are important, they give color to life, but they aren't meant to steer the ship. They are like the weather, changing with the wind. You can't build a life or a future based on something that shifts from moment to moment. If a pilot flew a plane by following his emotions rather than his instruments, he'd crash every time. He doesn't rely on how he feels, he relies on what he knows is true. It's the same in life. We cannot rely on how we feel in the moment to make decisions that carry eternal weight. How many times have we seen people make choices in the heat of emotion that they later regret? Words spoken in anger that destroyed a relationship. Decisions made in fear that led to missed opportunities. Choices made in impatience that caused unnecessary pain. In the moment, the emotions felt real, powerful, even overwhelming. But when the storm passed and clarity returned, the weight of those decisions remained. The emotion was temporary, the decision was lasting. Every one of us faces moments where emotions scream louder than reason. Times when anger demands a reaction, when fear tells us to run, when sadness tempts us to give up. But in those moments, we must remember that feelings are fleeting. What feels urgent now may not even matter tomorrow. What seems unbearable today may pass by morning. But the decisions we make in those moments can alter the course of our lives forever. This is why wisdom calls us to pause, to wait, and to choose with intention. It takes strength to hold back when your emotions are telling you to act fast. It takes courage to be still when your feelings are pulling you in every direction. But those who master this discipline build lives that stand the test of time. They plant seeds that bear good fruit because they didn't make decisions in a whirlwind of emotion. They chose from a place of peace, wisdom, and purpose. The truth is, emotions were never meant to be the captain of your life. They are passengers. They can inform you, but they should never direct you. One day you may feel like quitting, but that doesn't mean you should. Another day you may feel like walking away from everything good in your life because the weight seems too much to bear, but feelings are not facts. They are not the full picture. They are the weather report, but they are not the foundation of the house. Decisions made in clarity are like stones placed firmly in the ground. They are not easily moved. When you decide to love someone, to stay committed, that choice stands even when the feelings of love are tested. When you decide to walk in integrity, that decision anchors you even when shortcuts seem tempting. When you decide to trust God, to believe in His promises, that decision carries you through seasons when emotions tell you to doubt. Emotions fluctuate, but a decision made in faith, with conviction, stands the test of time. There will be days when your emotions are so strong that they try to drown out everything else. You may feel anxious, angry, frustrated, or heartbroken, but in those moments you have a choice. Will you be ruled by the emotion of the moment, or will you stand on the decision you already made? Will you let a temporary feeling undo a permanent commitment? Will you allow a fleeting emotion to pull you off a path that leads to life? People who finish their race, who accomplish their purpose, are not the ones who felt good all the time. They are the ones who made up their minds and stuck to their decisions no matter how they felt. They endured moments of weakness, fear, and exhaustion, but they stayed true to the choice they made when they were clear-minded and focused. Many of the most important decisions you'll ever make will be tested by emotions. You'll decide to forgive, and then anger will rise up again. You'll decide to stay strong in a challenge, and then fear will whisper in your ear. You'll choose to believe in yourself, and then doubt will knock on the door. But those feelings do not erase the power of your choice. You can feel fear and still act in faith. You can feel anger and still choose peace. You can feel sadness and still hold on to hope. The decisions we make with clarity and conviction are eternal in their impact because they shape the person we become. One right decision can change the course of a family for generations. One decision to break a cycle of addiction, to stand in faith, to walk in integrity can leave a legacy. And it all begins when we choose to live by conviction rather than emotion. Feelings are real, but they are not permanent. They may color the sky for a moment, but they don't have to determine the path we walk. Choices made with wisdom, rooted in truth, stand firm long after the storm of emotions passes. In the end, it's not what we felt in the moment that defines us. It's the decisions we made in spite of those feelings that tell our story. And when those choices are made with clarity and conviction, their impact lasts far beyond the moment. They echo in eternity. The reward comes to those who endure. Winning isn't about speed or ease. It's about perseverance. It's about staying the course when everything in you wants to quit. It's about holding on when letting go feels like the simplest option. Endurance is not something that happens by accident. It's a deliberate choice made day after day to keep moving forward despite difficulty, delay, or discouragement. There's a strength that builds in the person who refuses to back down in the face of emotional storms. And it's that inner strength, that courage to endure, that ultimately leads to victory. Life is filled with moments that test resolve. There will be seasons when the path ahead seems unclear, when the weight on your shoulders feels unbearable, and when the temptation to give up knocks on the door of your mind every single day. Emotions run high during these times. Fear whispers that you'll fail. Doubt shouts that you're not enough. Discouragement paints pictures of hopelessness. But it's in these very moments that endurance matters most. Because winning isn't determined by how you feel during the battle, it's determined by your ability to stay in the fight. Enduring through emotional storms requires a steadfast mind, one that isn't ruled by passing feelings, but instead anchored by conviction and purpose. Emotions can be powerful forces. They rise and fall, often without warning. One day you might feel hopeful, the next defeated. One moment confident and the next insecure. But endurance isn't about how you feel in a moment. It's about what you choose to do regardless of how you feel. It's about the decision to stay when everything inside tells you to run. It's about the courage to try again after repeated failures. It's about pressing on when your energy is gone and your heart feels empty. Those who endure understand that pain is often part of the process. There's no lasting victory without struggle, no meaningful success without sacrifice. Emotional storms will come, sometimes fierce and relentless, but those who keep walking through them find themselves on the other side stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Endurance teaches lessons that nothing else can. It shapes character in the dark seasons. It forges courage when fear seems like the only option. There is no shortcut to endurance. It's developed over time through challenge and choice. Every time you refuse to quit, you grow stronger. Every time you push past your emotions and keep moving forward, you build endurance. It's not always about grand gestures or heroic acts. Sometimes it's as simple as getting up one more time after being knocked down. Sometimes it's about showing up when you don't feel like it. Sometimes it's about choosing to believe in the promise even when you can't yet see the proof. Winning belongs to those who understand that emotions are temporary but purpose is permanent. Feelings change, but the reward of endurance remains. The ones who endure are often not the fastest or the strongest by outward standards. They are the ones who have trained their minds to be steadfast. They have chosen to develop courage, not in absence of fear, but in defiance of it. They keep showing up, keep giving their best even when the emotional storms try to wear them down. It's easy to start something with enthusiasm and passion. It's harder to stay the course when excitement fades and challenges arise. Endurance isn't needed at the beginning, when energy is high and hope is fresh. It's needed in the middle and at the end, when weariness sets in and doubts grow louder. The people who win are the ones who keep going, not because they never feel fear or frustration, but because they've decided that their purpose matters more than their momentary feelings. Courage and endurance go hand in hand. Courage is what gets you to step forward in the face of fear. Endurance is what keeps you moving long after the initial courage fades. It's the daily decision to persevere. It's the quiet strength to endure the silent battles no one else sees. It's the unwavering commitment to the process, knowing that reward only comes to those who finish. Endurance changes you. It develops patience. It deepens faith. It teaches humility. It reveals a strength that many people never discover because they stop too soon. The ones who win are not necessarily those who had the easiest path, but those who refused to stop walking it. They understood that storms don't last forever, that emotions, no matter how intense, eventually pass, and that reward lies beyond the struggle, waiting for those who endure. Winning requires more than talent or intelligence. It requires grit, the tenacity to press on, the willpower to stand firm, the fortitude to stay faithful even when results are delayed. Those who endure have their eyes on something greater than the temporary discomfort of the moment. They understand that endurance itself is part of the reward. It produces character, discipline, and strength that lasts long after the battle's over. There will be moments when you feel like you have nothing left to give, times when your strength seems gone and hope feels faint. But it's in those moments that endurance matters most. Not when it's easy, but when it's hard. Not when the path is clear, but when it's hidden by storms. And in enduring, you discover that you are stronger than you thought, that you can bear more than you believed, that you can stand firm when everything in you feels weak. The reward comes to those who endure, not because they never struggled, but because they never stopped, not because they never felt fear, but because they chose courage anyway. Not because they never faced emotional storms, but because they kept their minds steadfast through them. And in the end, it's endurance that leads to victory, and it's victory that belongs to those who endured. There is a race set before you. Don't run it with your feelings. Run it with your faith. Run it with a clear mind, a courageous heart, and an unshakable resolve, because you can only win when your mind is stronger than your emotions. And by the grace of God, you can win. Amen.